Hello, my name is Paul Feist, and I'd like to tell you how I became a writer and how my recently published novel came to be. Firstly, though, let me thank Catherine Rodney and all the library staff for all the hard work they've been doing through these difficult times. And a special thank you to Sarah McNeil for arranging this event and allowing me to shamelessly self-promote my new novel, Broken Anchor. People often ask, when did I know I wanted to be a writer? And I'll answer that by giving you some backstory as to what drew me into writing. I grew up in Mississauga. I went to high school there, enjoyed English literature classes, and I enjoyed handing in my essays, which I thought worthy of a Pulitzer, if not at least a Nobel. Of course, they would always come back with a plethora of red marks throughout, indicating bad grammar, poor sentence structure. But often, at the end of the essay, written in a little handwritten note by the teacher, I would see interesting story. So, about the same time, new neighbors moved next to me where I lived on the farm. They came from the city. The man was the marine manager for British American Oil Company. And after we'd become acquainted, he asked if I'd be interested in getting a summer job aboard the oil tankers that plied the Great Lakes and the often angry Atlantic. Well, I was an adventurous young man, and so I jumped at the chance, little realizing that that decision would provide the fodder for a novel that I would write many years later. Now, let's jump ahead to about 1987, when my lovely bride and myself moved to Muskoka. We purchased the Port Sandfield Marketeria on beautiful Lake Rosso, and we began advertising our store in the iconic Muskoka Sun summer paper. They eventually asked if I'd be interested in writing an article for them, a weekly column. And so Feast or Famine was created. Short, humorous stories about the foibles and misadventures of a Muskoka merchant and his family. And this ran for nearly 10 years in the paper. And so you might ask, is this when I knew I wanted to be a writer? And no, the answer is still no. I didn't consider my short stories qualified me to be a true scribbler, not just yet. But I did learn that dastardly word, deadline. Now, 10 years later, 1997, we sold the store and moved to Bracebridge. Looking for something interesting to do, I saw an ad in the paper saying anyone interested in writing should show up at the Bracebridge Library on Saturday morning. And so I came and met the delightful Melody Richardson. Melody told those of us that were coming back next week to bring with us a button. And so I showed up next Saturday with a button that I'd snatched from Janice's sewing kit. And Melody said, she put them all in a basket, juggled them up, and then blindly we picked a button. She said, now go home and write a story. My story, The Button, ended up making the quarterfinals in the Writers Union of Canada short prose contest. And that is when I was hooked as a writer. I joined a small writing circle with 3 other writers, and we would meet once a month and critique our work. I was in the midst of writing my memoirs, and I was just at that point where I was writing about my adventures as Sinbad the sailor on the high seas working on the oil tankers. My fellow scribes said to me, you've got a complete novel right in that one section of your life. And so my novel, Broken Anchor, began to take on a life. Although a work of fiction, it is based on my real-life experiences while sailing. It took me 5 years to put together, along with lots of critiquing from my writing partners. Also, my friends at this point that would not be afraid to tell me when I was going in the wrong direction. I was constantly hearing, you need a story arc. You need a beginning and an end. What I really had was a selection of short adventure stories. I needed a convincing storyline to connect the dots. What I ended up with is really 2 stories in one. The high seas adventures and romances of a cocky 19-year-old trying his best to become a man and all the while trying to stay alive. life at sea can be fraught with danger. I then took my young protagonist and brought him ahead 25 years to when he was a successful writer. However, he is reminded suddenly of a promise he once made and failed to keep. His guilt and redemption must be faced head on. So, my story is funny, it's sad, it's ribald, it's full of dangerous bravado, and yes, at times very sexy. There's so much more to creating a novel than just putting words on a paper. I hadn't even thought about cover design, editing, color, paper quality, paper weight, printing, let alone trying to find an agent or a publisher. Now, fortunately, Janice, my wife, is an artist, and she provided a fabulous cover for my book, Broken Anchor. The chain, the broken chain, is symbolic of broken dreams, broken promises. Now, agents and publishers are difficult to find at the best of times, and if they do agree to read your manuscript, it can take 6 months for them to get to it. And then if they like it, it can take 2 years to get to publishing. Yikes, 2 years? I decided to self-publish. Now let me read you a passage from my Broken Anchor and see if I can't whet your appetite to purchase this fabulous book. I told you this would be shameless self-promotion. Danny and his ship have just returned to home port after a month at sea, and he's made arrangements to meet his girlfriend, his enticing girlfriend, at the refinery gates once dinner is over. Dinner came and went without a hitch, except for one small issue. The captain didn't show. Sometimes the old man comes down late, says Freddie. I've prepared a plate and put it here on the stove to keep it hot. If he's not down by 7, he won't be coming. Probably went ashore and forgot to tell us. With that, he left, leaving Danny to clean up and wait. Finishing his chores in record time, Danny sat staring at the clock as it crept towards 7 o'clock. Son of a bitch, why be late tonight of all nights? By 6:50 p.m., Danny made an executive decision. He took the prepared dinner plate from the stove and deftly inverted it on top of the already heaping pile of plate scrapings that filled the garbage container. After one quick look around the galley to make sure things were in order, he pulled the apron over his ears and got ready to leave. The ear is an amazing organ. Even through the steel deck barrier, Danny's ears managed to pick up the deliberate clomp, clomp, clomp of someone coming down the stairway, then sitting at the head of the officers' mess table. No words, no apology, just sitting there waiting for his dinner. The sweat on Danny's forehead wasn't coming from the heat in the kitchen. The fire in his gut burned with both anger and worry. Not only was this intruding on his time with Katrina, but he'd just tossed the captain's meal into the bin. How was he going to serve a delicious dinner to the skipper now? The brainwave came in a flash of culinary brilliance. Grabbing a warm dinner plate, he approached the garbage can with the stealth of a hunter about to dispatch its prey. Placing the plate on top of the earlier discarded dinner, he slid his hand into the waste pile and flipped the dinner back onto the plate. Voila! 1 pork chop, 1 scoop of slightly squished mashed potatoes, and a fetching array of peas and carrots. He discarded a clinging piece of bacon left over from the lunch menu. Combining the delicate touch of a surgeon and the flair of Picasso, Danny's fingers arranged a plate fit for a king, or in this case, a captain. The food had cooled somewhat during the process, but as luck would have it, the ever-present pot of hot gravy still sat waiting on the stove. With a splash of brown over everything, he entered the officers' mess carrying a 4-star platter. Evening, sir, said Danny, grinning broadly as he slid the plate in front of the old man. Enjoy your meal, sir. Thank you, Dawson. I won't be long. You probably want to get ashore before we sail. Oh, no rush, sir. You just sit and enjoy your dinner. Only make sure you're out of here in 5 minutes. True to his word, the captain was on his way in short order. Delicious, Dawson. I'll take my coffee topside, he said, and then he was gone. Gathering the dirty dishes and tossing them in the sink, Danny raced through the labyrinth of the refinery up to the gates to meet, hopefully, his true love. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And if you wish to purchase the book, you can visit my website, Paul Feist, or you can go directly to paulfeist@hotmail.com, and I can talk to you about delivery or pickup. Thank you so much. Cheers, happy holidays, happy reading, and perhaps happy writing. Everybody's got a story.